Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great morning so far. This is Kristen from the LTAP Center, and we offer a lot of services to our local agencies, all of which are at no cost, and so you can see some of those here. Our website is floridaltap.org, where you can find our recorded webinars as well as a training calendar with events that are coming up as well. We are on social media. Our handle is FLLTAP. And without further ado, I am going to hand things over to Gina to get started today. So Gina, I will make you presenter and we will go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much. Very good. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back. And I'm very excited to be here today. And again, as Christine mentioned last time when we all got together in July, that was a good number of attendees, and thank you for that as well. And at that time, we received a lot of questions, and I answered as much as time allowed me at that time. But we did have some outstanding questions, and we also received more questions. So we thought it would be a great opportunity for us again to get together and answer your some of the outstanding questions that you had and I didn't have time to answer. But again, in the meantime, if you want to type in your questions in the chat box, please do so. I'm going to go ahead and answer the outstanding questions first, and then if we have any more questions today, and if the time allows, we'll go ahead and answer those. If not, we'll get back with you. But I promise I will answer those questions either today or maybe via email or even a telephone call. So let's go ahead and start the questions. So I have all the questions in a PowerPoint presentation so you all can see. So one question came in is that it says, is land repurposing solely for road diet projects? So again, I'm answering all the questions I have received. Land repurposing are road diets. In Florida, many years ago, we used to call them road diets, and now we call them land repurposing because we wanted to make sure public understands that we're not just taking a lane, rather we are taking a lane and repurposing it for other uses. So we thought it's more positive to public when we present our project to public in our public meeting. So we call it lane repurposing, and it's specifically same as road diet projects. Some states call it road diet, but here in Florida, we call it lane repurposing. Now, the other question is that if lanes are repurposed for on-street parking, is there preference operationally for parallel or angled parking? So first of all, keep in mind any project that we approved or any lane repurposing project that are designed, it's on a case-by-case basis. But when it comes to parking preference, there's no specific preference for parking design. So angled parking is used on street where they have sufficient right-of-way. But parallel parking is mostly commonly used on streets where there is enough right-of-way, or usually parallel parking or angle parking mainly are preferred on one-way streets. So I looked at all of our documents of the FDOT design manual. I could not see any preference on any of these type of parking. So if you look at FDM 210, which is arterials and collectors, or if you look at FDM 212, which is intersections, or even FDM 223, which is bicycle facilities, there are no specific preferences on type of parking design. But there is a Florida statute 316 that states local governments may permit angle parking on state highway system unless it's not permitted by the department. So if local government want to design angle parking on the state highway system, it has to be approved by the department and it has to be permitted by the department. So there are no preferences on type of parking. So what was the posted speed limit on the, I showed some examples first in our past webinar, and it says what were the posted speed limit on those projects that I showed. Was posted speed limit reduced? So the reason I'm showing these questions, even though I showed the examples in the previous webinar and you're not seeing it now, but I just want to get to the point with this, is that with lane repurposing projects, you may want to reduce the speed limit because we go by context and each context has its own posted speed limit. So if we are proposing a lane repurposing project and it doesn't meet that context posted speed, so we need to adjust that posted speed limit. Yes, for some of the lane repurposing project, we need to go with the context and we need to go what's required for that specific context. And if we need to adjust the posted speed limit, then we adjust the speed limit and reduce the speed limit. So any of these questions, if you have any, you want to more clarification, please put your concern or questions in the chat box. So another question is that the district's transit units are good resources when looking for most up-to-date transit development plans, since they are responsible for the review of the document. Of course, definitely. For land repurposing projects that involve facilities for transit-related services, specifically for BRTs or any transit-related services, it is advised that additional discussion and coordination with FDOT and their respective transit agencies take place as early as possible. This is because this guidebook may not, when I say guidebook means lane repurposing guidebook, may not cover all guidance or even issues that occur during the planning phase of these type of lane repurposing projects. So we definitely recommend you, suggest you staying in contact with the MOL offices, with the transit office for more guidance on that. So the sustained effectiveness of lane elimination projects can be enhanced through concurrent implementation of context-sensitive traffic signal operation. For example, operation that provides coordinated operation of adjacent signals reflecting the desired operating speed, or operation that supports pedestrian mobility by minimizing wait time to cross the roadway or through provision of exclusive pedestrian face. So this is this may not be a question, but I thought it would be good to discuss this. So again, I keep saying this in my lane repurposing projects or even in our guidebook, that every design that's approved by FDOT, it's all approved on a case-by-case basis. That doesn't mean that it's a cookie cutter, and if you've done it for one project, you may be able to implement that for other projects. It's all done on a case-by-case basis. It's all done on many factors. So sure, signal coordination is really important for any project, and not just for land repurposing projects. But so signal coordination is a common signal strategy that's utilized to improve roadway operations. Signal coordination. It's really important, and it's typically uses a common cycle length and synchronizes multiple intersections with the goal of reducing number of stops, obviously, and reduce the delay through traffic. So meaning, when you as a driver get to a signal that is green, so the other signals are all green. It's all done based on the speed of the traffic, based on the length of the segment, and that's how signals are coordinated. So, but keep in mind, there is a limitation for pedestrian and bicyclists. So an exclusive pedestrian phase is a portion of a traffic signal cycle that is reserved for pedestrian movements while displaying red on all traffic signals for vehicles. So exclusive phasing is most often considered for intersections in downtown area or central business districts with high pedestrian volumes. But signal coordination, when signals are coordinated, that may impact the pedestrian, meaning pedestrian really have to wait for these signals to turn red for the vehicles, so their so pedestrian signal appears. Again, everything is done on a case-by-case basis. It's done on a location of the lane repurposing that's going to be implemented. So can current models predict where the traffic go after lanes are repurposed? So definitely, we want to look at the existing condition where the project or where the roadway is. We want to look at the future condition, how the roadway functions when lane repurposing has taken place. So lane repurposing projects will affect traffic by altering the capacity of the roadway or by removing one or more lanes. So we want to know by modeling where the traffic goes. So in order to determine the impacts of lane repurposing, it is important first understand the traffic pattern and also understand the growth of traffic in the study area. So we do recommend, it is all laid out in the lane repurposing guidebook, that we need to prepare a traffic forecast that shows us what the condition is with no lane repurposing built, and then what the condition or scenario is when the project is in place. So we need to do a forecast to do a comparison with built and no built scenario. So yes, traffic forecasting shows where the traffic will go, and the guidance for traffic forecasting, it's all laid out in FDOT's Project Traffic Forecasting Handbook, which is a great tool in this process. So two important considerations are the size of the area under study and also the level of accuracy that's needed for that project. So keep in mind, if the traffic impact is a critical component in decision making, then traffic forecasting model may need to be used, and that shows the turning movements at intersections. But if the impact is not that significant, you may not want to use the model. As simple capacity estimates of ADT may be sufficient. So yes, travel demand models show the traffic patterns, where the traffic go and what the existing conditions are, where the traffic is going now, and if we do implement lane repurposing, where the traffic will go in the future. For lane repurposing, what is the rationale or for limiting access to driveways to ride in and ride out? One asked that they want to limit access to ride in and ride out on a corridor with a raised median. Of course, you could do that, but again, so if you follow the lane repurposing guidance in the lane repurposing guidebook, we do require of analysis of an access management on that segment of the roadway where lane repurposing is going to take place. So one of the document that you need to provide to us is the analysis of access management. So we need to look at our existing condition. We need to look at our existing driveways, look at the conflict points, look where your medians are, where your median openings are, then analyze the situation, analyze the crashes, where these crashes are occurring, where these impacts are occurring. Could it be the median opening that's existing on the roadway where we are implementing a lane repurposing? Are the conflict points due to driveways next to each other? So these, we need to look at access management. We need to assess the conflict points. So we FDOT, when we issue a permit for a driveway, in that rule, which is Rule 14-96, we state, if we tell the applicant, we do provide a permit for your driveway, but at any time, if we see any issues, conflict, crashes related to any specific driveway, we can either remove, relocate, or consolidate the driveways. So yes, during lane repurposing projects, we need to look at conflict points related to driveways, median openings. So with driveways, we can always go back and analyze the potential conflict points and resolve the issues by, again, removing the driveways or relocating them or even consolidating them. But when it comes to median is our traffic feature, means it's the FDOT's traffic feature. It's our right of way. So it's our right to open and close the median opening due to conflict or crashes. So when we close a median opening, we want to eliminate left turns from a driveway. So we can, therefore, when you close a median opening and you eliminate left turns from a driveway, that means you are making your driveway a right in and right out. So yes, during the lane repurposing projects, we require an analysis of access management of that segment of the roadway where lane repurposing is going to take place. So what is the distance from the intersection that is considered functional area where we do not permit driveways, or where driveways do not belong to that section of the roadway, which is called functional area? So let me show you what functional area of an intersection is. So this is a functional area of an intersection, which consists of three basic elements. Okay, distance traveled during decision time. Okay, that means as a driver, that's when you decide to make a move into the left turn. Then another element is the maneuver deceleration distance. That means as you get into the left turn, then you slow down. So that's called deceleration distance. And then the other element is the queue storage distance. So this all together, decision distance, maneuver distance, and queuing distance, it all creates a functional area in that intersection where we do not permit median opening and nor driveways in this functional area. And again, these distances are not the same. So one functional area may be different than functional area of the an adjacent intersection. So it all depends on the distances. So you measure these distances, and then that becomes your functional area. And this is where you do not allow median opening nor driveways in this functional area of the intersection. So how is reduced capacity by repurposing seen in the eyes of the FDOT? So keep in mind when we, based on the complete street policy, it's our mission to provide a safe and efficient transportation facilities for all roadway users. So it's not about capacity, it's not all it's about cars anymore. It's about providing facilities for all roadway users, providing facilities for pedestrian, for bicyclists, and um, transit users, and transit and parking. So it's about providing a facility for all of us who use the roadway system. So of course, lane repurposing may or may not impact a capacity. So even if it impacts the capacity, instead we're providing facilities for all roadway users. So there are trade-offs, okay? So when we take a lane and repurpose it for other uses, you may see an impact on the capacity, but at the same time, you are encouraging pedestrians to use that facility. You are encouraging bicyclists to use the bicycle lane. You are encouraging pedestrians to take transit. So there is going to be trade-off. So by looking at just the level of service on a roadway, of course, FDOT used to have level of service standards. That means we had to meet those standards. Since due to adoption of complete street policy, we changed from standards to target. So we have level of service target D in urbanized area and C elsewhere. So these are level of service target, and lane repurposing may impact the level of service target, but again, we are providing other facilities for other uses, for other users. So there are trade-offs. So again, our mission is to provide a safe environment, provide efficient facilities, safe facilities for all roadway users. So what are your thoughts on placing hedges or decorative fencing in medians to force people to cross at intersections as opposed to crossing mid-block in order to get to a bus across the street? So for lane repurposing, the analysis should consider existing and proposed pedestrian circulation, mid-block and signalized intersection crossings, transit connectivity, and crash data. In the event of illegal mid-block crossing, the bus stops locations need to be evaluated and possibly relocated near side or far side of the intersections. So if we see pedestrians making somewhat illegal mid-block crossing, are they going to the other side of the street to catch the bus? Do we need to relocate these bus stops? So projects should consider the incorporation also of additional features to improve mobility or even aesthetics of an area, such as planting trees or flowers, as long as the site distance is not blocked. So, and then in some situations, if we see a lot of pedestrians making illegal crossings instead of going to the intersection. So yes, even though there are times we may relocate these bus stops, and there are some areas that you may want to plant bushes or fence. So there was this situation in Tallahassee with some of you, if you are familiar with Tallahassee area, we have Florida State University on Tennessee Street. So there was a situation in here in Florida near FSU where mid-block crossing became problematic. So to prevent mid-block crossing, city um, use the um, black painted chain link fence to and on a section of the West Tennessee Street just to um, really just to make the pedestrians go to the next intersection and cross the intersection in order to get to the other side. So with that said, yes, you can plant flowers, bushes. You can, like I said, just like the example I used in Tallahassee, fence can be placed in some of the section of the roadway. Again, everything is done on a case by case, depending on the um, number of pedestrian crossing, or is that section that you may wanna, does that section, if you see a lot of pedestrian crossing, a segment of a roadway, does that warrant a pedestrian signal? Those are the things that we need to look into. So who approves lane repurposing, and is a public workshop required to gain community support? So if a lane repurposing project is proposed on a state highway system, then FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, approves that lane repurposing project. And yes, public workshop is required to gain community support. It's one of the major factors for approving a project, approving a lane repurposing project. We want to make sure that community supports this project. We need to stay in contact from the beginning, from the very beginning with public. We need to communicate with public. We need to make them understand the purpose of the project, how this project is going to provide a safe environment for that location. So yes, we need to gain community support. We need to stay in touch with them. We need to make them understand how this project is going to impact. What multimodal trip forecasting is included in traffic analysis? So it is necessary to measure and evaluate the effect of lane repurposing on pedestrians and bicyclists. In most cases, the purpose of proposed projects include reallocating roadway space for improvements for bicyclists, pedestrians, and transit mode. So the analysis for the lane repurposing should consider existing and proposed pedestrian circulations, mid-block, and signalized intersection crossings. We need to consider transit activity and crash data. So the need for dedicated bicycle facilities and or shared use path should be determined based on bicycle volumes and circulation data, based on network connectivity and crash data. So data on existing, nearby, and future on-street parking should be included in this analysis as warranted. So the multimodal network analysis should consider, mobility service providers such as e-scooters, dockless bicycles, and other modes. So yes, it is important to forecast multimodal trip data in the traffic analysis that will be provided part of the concept report to FDOT for review. Some local agencies may want a lane repurposing in an area where traffic is going to fail no matter what. If they're okay and accept the LOS will fail, then shouldn't FDOT be okay with that as well? So yes, Lane repurposing, first of all, we know that lane repurposing may have a minimal impact or substantial impact on capacity. So again, every project is different. Any roadway that are chosen for lane repurposing must meet the criteria for lane repurposing. Some of the criteria, for example, the ADT on that road. Um, is that road a truck route? Is that an evacuation route? Is that road on CIS facilities? There are so many factors that we need to look at first to make sure that roadway is a good candidate for lane repurposing. So again, we want to provide the safe facilities for all roadway users, but that doesn't mean we take every road and repurpose it, but that segment of a roadway must meet a criteria. So once we choose a segment or a facility for lane repurposing, and yes, we analyze it, and lane repurposing may have a minimal impact on capacity or may have a substantial impact on capacity. So even on congested corridors, a lane may be repurposed for transit project. On congested corridors where just there is no way that we can expand the roadway, that there is no way that we can add a lane to relieve that congestion. So instead, to provide facilities for other users, instead to relieve congestion, you may want to improve your existing sidewalk. You may want to improve your existing bike lane. Or if there is no bike lane, you need to provide bike lane. You need to provide more transit in order to relieve your congestion, in order to encourage people to walk on bike to their destination or from their destination, to encourage them to take transit. So yes, there are some congested roadways that, you know, it can be a candidate for lane repurposing. So yes, we approve those projects. But again, if you are uh, repurposing a congested roadway and adding transit lane on that congested roadway, keep in mind that you cannot convert the traffic volumes all of a sudden with ridership. It usually takes a while for humans, for drivers to get to accept the situation, to get used to that roadways. At the beginning, you may not see enough ridership. We may not be able to capture enough ridership where we are providing transit, but over time, vehicles will be replaced by transit users. People start getting used to the segment of the roadway. People get used to using the bike lane, get used to walking, get used to using transit. So sure, I mean, if the locals want repurpose a lane on a roadway, on a state highway system, first, since that's being um, you know, uh, considered on the state highway system, even though the locals are the applicant, but we need to review the situation. We need to assess the situation. Then we can either reject or accept the project. So when a lane diet is done, usually no build behaves better than the build model. So what other measures are needed by FDOT to make sure a lane repurposing works? So as I said earlier, a lane repurposing project may have a minimal impact on a roadway or may have a substantial impact on a roadway. So we look at many measures. One measure is the level of service. Yes, we'll look at that. And again, as I said, level of service is one of the measures we'll look at to see how lane repurposing is going to impact the capacity. And as I said, there is always a trade-off, and it may impact the level of service. But in order for a roadway to work, a lane repurposing to work, level of service is not the only measure. We need to look and make sure that there are parallel facilities in place. There are regional connectivity in place. We want to make sure that if a lane repurposing is going impact the capacity and some of the traffic may divert, we want to make sure there are other facilities that can handle the diverted traffic. So connectivity, regional connectivity, parallel facilities in place is really important. So besides level of service, we want to look at other measures. Other measures are, for example, it's the crash data. So we need to look at the 5-year crash data, and so that's one of the measure, a safety measure that we look at. We want to look where the crashes are occurring, and once if we are providing bike lane and sidewalk, and we are narrowing lanes, we need to prove that by this lane repurposing, we are minimizing number of crashes. So yes, there are many factors: level of service, VMT, vehicle miles traveled, crash data we need to look at, and also obviously it's really important that um, you know if the lane repurposing is on the state highway system, to have an initial meeting with the district office to develop a methodology and make sure the applicant understand what needs to be done, what data needs to be collected, and how concept report needs to be prepared. And for example, for crash data, do we use should we use highway capacity manual and crash modification factors to prove that providing a lane repurposing or building sidewalk and bike lane, how it's going to minimize the number of crashes and provide a safe environment for all roadway users. So all of this that I have covered today thus far, or even in our previous webinar, everything is laid out in our lane repurposing guidebook. We have a great guidance. Everything is laid out in there. Lane repurposing guidebook will direct you to provide links to go to project traffic forecasting, to it directs you to go to FDOT design manuals, or all those necessary guidebook, handbook, and criteria that needs to be used for lane repurposing projects. So for lane diets near ramp terminals, both LOS and VMT will be bad measures. Is that correct? Since we cannot take multimodal transportation when the traffic is mainly from the freeway along the growth in arterial. In that case, which is more important, relocation of the ramp terminal or a lane diet. Okay, so as I said, the purpose of lane repurposing is to provide facilities for bicyclists, pedestrians, or all roadway users. So with that said, that doesn't mean if we have a location near a ramp terminal, we can just repurpose a lane and provide bike lane and sidewalk. Okay, so again, everything is done on a case-by-case basis. Keep in mind, we, FDOT, do not approve lane repurposing near ramp terminal. Okay, so again, every situation is different, but we do not approve lane repurposing or do not approve projects, lane repurposing projects near ramp terminal. So that should really answer this question. Another question, do you know if any cases where a lane repurposing project was implemented and later reverted to original condition? And if yes, what was the reason? So since I've been involved with lane repurposing project, I'm not aware of lane repurposing projects going back to the original. I haven't been involved in that. I don't know any of it. I'm not aware of that situation because, first of all, we don't want that to happen. We don't want to revert to the original condition because that just doesn't look good in public eye. So this is why there is a system in place. There is a process in place when it comes to land repurposing projects and approval. We don't want that to happen. We don't want, to me, that's a mistake. If a land repurposing project doesn't work and we go back to the original condition, that means it just doesn't work. So we have process in place, we have system in place, we do, you know, we have to look at the existing condition, we have to look at the future condition. We really have to make sure that land repurposing project works. So for some situation, if you're not sure, one condition is that to do a temporary or temporary or pilot project means that even the pilot project or temporary project has to go through the land repurposing process, meaning it's just like a land repurposing project. You as an applicant provide come to FDOT for a temporary or pilot project. We have to review, you have to develop a concept report, you have to follow step by step all the process that is done for the permanent project. So you have to come to us, we review the project, we review your concept plan, we review the typical section, then that temporary or pilot project may be approved. So I'm not aware of land repurposing that was built and then it went back to the original. This question is related to one of the slides I showed in our past webinar. So one of the slides showed that bike lane was adjacent to a parking. So now this question is in regard to that. It says you showed an example of a bike lane in the door zone. As a cyclist, I find these types of bike lanes, especially minimum width ones, are not ideal. Are these still getting approved? So keep in mind that when we provide, or approve a bike lane adjacent to a parking, it's all done based on FDM criteria. And FDM criteria has specific criteria where the bike lane should be, what the width should be when the bike lane is built or being approved adjacent to a parking. So there are some roadways that, sure, we have to provide parking on that segment of a roadway. And then obviously that bike lane will be adjacent to that parking. So let me show you what is in the FDM. So in the FDM, it indicates that if there is parking or bike lane adjacent to the parking, as you can see, the bike lane is itself, it's 7 feet buffered bike lane, okay? And as you can see, the striping between the bike lane and the parking, 3 feet buffer with 6 feet wide diagonal hatching, okay? So this buffer really separates the pedestrian, the bicyclist from these parked cars if the cars are opening or closing their doors. Okay, so then as you can see, so there are segments of a roadway. Sure, there are some situations that parkings are available, then we are adding bike lane. So there are criteria that we must meet in order to approve that type of situation. And so what is the time duration for typical application process? So there is no specific time limit. Let's put it this way. So once the application comes and initial meeting has taken place, then in that initial meeting, applicants is clear as what's needed for the applicant to provide to FDOT for review. So the applicant needs to provide a concept report. That concept report is a thick document. It includes many, many factors, existing conditions, future conditions, many things that's required in that concept report, crash data. So it's all laid out in the lane repurposing guidebook. So once that concept report is completed by the applicant, then that comes to the district office. The district office reviews that concept report. If there are any questions or concern in regard to that report, then the districts will get back with the applicant, and the applicant has the responsibility to answer those questions, and they have to modify the concept report if it's needed. So once that concept report is approved at the district level, then it comes to central office. Then we review that. And if we have any questions or concern, we get back to the district, and the district will contact the applicant. And then again, the applicant needs to answer the questions or even modify the concept report. So these all depends on the applicant. So as soon as we find questions or concern in the concept report, we contact the applicant, and then it's up to the applicant how quickly they answer the questions and how quickly they update the concept report. But our review here in central office has time. So once the approval from district office comes to us, we have 2 weeks to review the concept report. And these concept reports need to be reviewed by traffic operations office. It needs to be reviewed by the design office. And also, obviously, it's being reviewed by our office, systems implementation office. But it all depends on how quickly the applicant will turn around the concept report, how quickly the applicant answers the questions or solves the problems that we see in the concept report. And why would you impose a shared use lane with bicycles that travel at speeds of about 12 miles in I think this is a typo, in a 2-mile car speed? Wouldn't this be an unsafe situation for cyclists? So I think they're talking obviously about sharrows, okay? Sharrows are used where it's not practical to provide a bicycle facility, and the travel lane is too narrow. Even if we want to provide a bicycle lane, the travel lane is too narrow that bicyclists and vehicles really travel side by side, and that creates an unsafe situation. So also sharrows or shared use paths are provided with where we have you know, parallel parking. Also, it's and also, I mean, in again, sharrows are used where the roadways are too narrow, that we just cannot provide safe separated bicycle lanes. And also, the sharrows could be used sometimes to fill a gap. Let's say we have connectivity issues, and that segment of a roadway, we may want to provide sharrows just to fill that gap. So sharrows or shared use paths, which is a mix of traffic vehicles and bicycles, it's not a suitable combination on all roadways. It has to be on roadways with a very low speed and low traffic volume. So a question says, just to clarify, if a through lane is converted to a left turn lane, does it need to go through the lane repurposing process? So if we take a lane and we convert it to a left turn lane, that's operational improvement. So we are not taking that lane to use it for bicycle, sidewalk, or even transit, or even on-street parking. So we're taking that lane and using it for left turn lane. So that is not a lane repurposing project, and it does not need to go through lane repurposing process. So taking a lane, using it for left turn lane, that's an operational improvement. Again, that is not lane repurposing project, and it does not need to go through lane repurposing review. So another question is that what is the best practice for the period of time that should pass before conducting a post-study for lane repurposing project? So we currently use, what is the best practice for a period of time that should pass before conducting post-study project? Actually, that's a good question, because currently we're doing a before and after study, okay? Because we want to know if these lane repurposing projects are really working, okay? So this would be a good justification also to use in public involvement. If it's working, we take this project and show public, hey, look, we've done lane repurposing projects. We have looked at the before. We have done a after study, and these lane repurposing projects are working very well. So yes, we are doing a before and after study. The best, I would say, the best practice of timing, you may want to look at a year or 2 years after the project is completed. You can do a year after, and also the best practice would be maybe 2 years. But the reason we say 2 years is that you want public to get used to that lane repurposing project. You want public to get used to that segment of the roadway that lane repurposing has taken place. Because if you want to take a look at it really right after the lane repurposing project is in place, you're not going to get a good data, because it really takes a while for public to get situated, to get used to that route. Because in the meantime, right after lane repurposing, you may see some traffic diverted to parallel facilities, but after a while, they may come back to the existing facility. So yeah, currently we're doing a lane repurposing project, and we are about to complete that research. And so far, we have found that lane repurposing work really well. We have found that lane repurposing have reduced crashes. We have found that lane repurposing has a huge impact on capacity. And so yes, as far as timing, again, if you want to do a before and after study, you may want to do a year before lane repurposing was taken place, because you want to know what the existing condition was then and what the existing condition is now, 12 months later or 2 years later, just to compare to see how lane repurposing is working. And again, these research projects are the best tool that you can present at your public meetings to convince public how well these projects work. So another question is that, does the FDOT provide guidelines for weighing the trade-offs experienced by the various roadway users resulting from lane repurposing projects? Some may be very passionate regarding the need for bicycle lane and pedestrian facilities, regardless of impacts to vehicular traffic. Of course, if you are a bicyclist, you ride your bike, going to work, going to different places, or if you're a pedestrian, walk, you want a facility for yourself. Bicyclists want facilities for themselves. Pedestrians want sidewalk. Drivers, vehicles, we all want the roadway to ourselves, okay? So the purpose of lane repurposing is that to do a balance for all roadway users based on that context. That doesn't mean that bicycle is a good fit for a rural C1 rural area where, I mean, high speed roadways. So you have to go really look at the context of that roadway and see what's needed to be provided for that specific context. So another question is that when are impacts to vehicular traffic unacceptable for lane repurposing? So sure, lane repurposing projects really have to meet criteria in order to be a good candidate for lane repurposing. If the roadways are very high traffic roadways, that may not be a good candidate. Even though I said in my previous, one of these questions that some congested roadway can be a candidate for lane repurposing because we cannot add a lane, therefore we may repurpose that even though it's congested. But again, there are some high volume traffic roadways. There are some high volume traffic, high speed roadways that are not a good candidate for lane repurposing. We have to see if these roadways are traffic or track routes, if they are on the CIS roadways, if they are on emergency evacuation roadways. If we do lane repurposing on these roadways, can we accommodate trucks? Can we accommodate emergency evacuation? Can we accommodate high volume, high traffic roadways? So there are criteria that we need to meet in order to have a good candidate for lane repurposing projects. Again, we want to provide facilities for all roadways, but again, that segment of a roadway has to be a good candidate for lane repurposing projects. So with that said, I think I've answered all the outstanding questions that we had from our previous webinar, and we just received a few more questions, and I hope I have answered all of your questions as clear as possible. If not, please email me. Please get back with us. I can give you a phone call. We can talk on telephone, or we can just communicate via email and ask me more questions, or I can clarify some of these questions where I wasn't clarified, if you think. So with that said, we're done, and we have shared our lane repurposing website in the chat with our contact information and district lane repurposing coordinators contact information. So please contact us, contact myself, contact your district lane repurposing coordinator for any questions and issues that you may have. With that said, I'm going to thank LTAP for inviting me to even for previous lane repurposing webinar and even for this one. And I want to thank Christine Larson for her great communication. So I thank you all for your time and effort. Please, we're here to help with any questions and comments you may have. Contact us. And with that said, I'm going to let you guys go. You all have a wonderful rest of your morning, rest of your workday, and take good care of yourself. Thank you, and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tina. We really appreciate you being here and giving us this great information. To our audience, thanks so much for submitting all of the questions. It really made for a great interactive session, or giving a lot of your questions answered. So we appreciate that. And with that, we'll go ahead and close things out. Happy Monday to everyone. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you on the next Florida LTAP webinar. Take care.